And then I realized, did these bastards put South America as uh, the hardest lesson, meaning that nobody knows where anything is in South America?
Everything, everything
And I
is
was like,
Mexico.
exactly.
Everything is Mexico.
Welcome everybody to episode 49 of NGPC. We are here once again with Tom Segura, doppelganger, Cristian Caroli. How are you, man?
Doing well, doing well. We have a tough cookie of an episode today because
Yes, we
it was
do.
kind of like a wholesome, insightful exercise that we did for this episode.
Absolutely. The topic for this week is underrated games in our perspective, of course. These are games like so the criteria is pretty simple. It's just games that were critically overlooked or critically mishandled, let's say, under our eyes, where we bought them anyway and we had a great time and they actually made an impression on us for one reason or another. So yeah, I think that we can get going. So give me your first underrated game.
The
So
Witcher 3. Not just kidding. Not that I got that hidden gem out of my. I had to do the joke. I would rather just do it like in the first 2 minutes, and then we can move on with our lives and
yeah,
not say anything stupid
pull
for
that
the rest.
band-aid off right now.
Exactly, just immediately. So yeah, I think that the first game I wanted to talk about it's an old one. I mean, to talk a little bit about my mind process with all of these games. They, there are games that were good back in the day, but we don't talk about them anymore. I think that tends to happen, especially with double A games. And also the public discourse was kind of like not as loud as it is today because we didn't have like the reach of social networks and the impact of like public discourse as we have today. But my first game is called The Mark of Cree on PlayStation 2. I don't know if you ever played that game, Juan?
I don't think I've ever even heard of it, so
You
I'm
haven't
really
even heard
excited.
of it.
Yeah, I'm really
Okay.
excited to hear about it. Yeah,
So this is a hidden this is a true hidden gem, I would
exactly.
say. So the Mark of Cree was kind of like it wasn't an RPG. Well, it had RPG elements, but it was basically an action game where you had Cree and you had a pet that was an eagle, and it was kind of like a combat game, and you would it was kind of like a Zelda combat game where you venture into this like jungle and you had like this revenge story, and basically the combat was super cool. Like it had a lot of slow motion. It had kind of like a very interesting character, and it's one of those games when you're a lot younger that you're like, it would be cool if they do a game like this. Kind of like it would be cool if they do a game like Zelda, but more violent. And you also had the eagle that you would send to some spots, and then you would be able to see things through your eagle because you had some stealth elements, and it was really good. It was from the studios, San Diego studios, that they are now working, I think, almost exclusively on the show, the baseball game, and they're still going strong. But back in the day, I think that this game was well received, but like it didn't make it to the legendary status of plenty of games of that generation. And I remember like it was slick, it had a good presentation, it wasn't like massively ambitious, but it was fun, and I played a lot of it. I finished it a couple of times, and it had a sequel, but the sequel kind of like fell flat on its feet because like if the first one didn't kind of make it, then they lost some market with the second one, although I understand it was a bit more ambitious. But yeah, like for me it's kind of like it's a true hidden gem because I mentioned it to people that were a lot into games, and most people don't even know it.
Yeah, I mean, I just as you were talking about it, I was not paying attention at all. No, I'm just kidding. I was looking at the cover art, and I have seen this cover art definitely. Like, I totally remember it. Like, the font is very like
Yeah.
very I don't know, like exotic. It looks pretty cool, and yeah, I mean, I unfortunately, I've never played it, but I mean, from what you're saying, it sounds like it's a pretty cool action adventure title. I mean, I was surprised to hear that it's done by Sony San Diego, which I don't think they were named that at the time. Perhaps they hadn't been acquired
Probably
yet.
that wasn't the name, because I think that
Yeah.
once Sony buys a studio, then they change it to they strip them of their brand, and now you're called the city you're in. You're an office
Exactly.
now, no longer your own self. Yeah, I think that also, like, I don't know if you relate with this, but whenever I would play Zelda or like some of those games like as a teenager, those games, I think that like Zelda has kind of like this this kind of like a life experience that you accompanied with, and after a while you feel that they're children's game, and you're like, well, it would be cool to also play like some more mature stuff. I think, although I have to say that for me Zelda is like a there's no need, there's no age or audience for Zelda, but like when you're a teenager, you're like, it would be cool if there's something more violent or something more kick ass, action driven.
Everybody remembers the time between Majora's Mask and Wind Waker where they had that tech demo. I don't know if you remember it, where you have Link fighting Ganondorf and it's like super realistic looking.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that demo. It
And
was
that's
super
why
exciting.
people were so surprised with Wind Waker, because it's like, this is not what we were expecting at all. And I mean, it ended up being a critical hit and everything. But I totally understand what you mean. In fact, that is why I almost included this game in the list. So I'm not going to say it because it's totally not a hidden gem, but Twilight Princess is one of my favorite Zeldas. And it's the closest we've gotten to like a mature Zelda in terms of like art style and also thematic, I believe.
Yeah. It's more mature.
Yeah, exactly. And some people kind of downplay that game, and I'm like, this is one of my favorite ones. I really love it. I played the HD remaster. I think it for Wii U that came out. Yeah,
Yeah, in Wii U.
and it was awesome. I mean, I really loved it, even though some years had passed. Because sometimes you look at it like with rose-colored glasses or something like that. But no, this was really cool. So yeah, I totally understand your point with that. So yeah, the Mark of Cree. This is I love how we're starting, because I think that it would be really cool if some, if not, maybe not all. I imagine not all, because that would be really far fetched. But to be things that the other one doesn't know. I mean, that's awesome. So yeah, I hope to stump you with one at least. So my first one, I'm gonna go like you did, kind of in a chronological way, because I think that'll be a little bit more interesting. Although I'm seeing that these kind of fall in the same, like the same time. So the first one I'm gonna go with is Singularity. This is a game developed by Raven Software. The guys at Raven, I'm just realizing that they have another game in my list, which I'm not gonna reveal at the moment. But if you know Raven, you probably know which one it is. But whatever. So these guys are currently working like as one of the many studios behind Call of Duty, which for me is a kind of a disappointment, because as I said, like, I like their games. I like what they've done with single player and other stuff. So to see them kind of be like a support studio. I mean, they recently with Black Ops Cold War, they went into kind of not the boss, let's say, role with the game, but they did the campaign. We know that they did that. And I really like that campaign. That was really cool. And
They had I barely remember that game, but I do, because I never played it, which is again like a cool thing in the sense that I missed that hidden gem. But it like, for, if I remember correctly, it was kind of like at the same time that Fear came out, right? Like that aesthetic of really intense violence and gritty and gritty aesthetics were around.
yeah, I mean, Fear is also a game that I would have included in this list, but yeah, you're totally right. Like, it came out. So now that you mentioned Fear, I would say that it is kind of a mixture of Fear, but more than Fear, it's Bioshock, because this is like a Soviet sort of Bioshock, which I know sounds a lot like Atomic Heart, like I just said, but this was like the first game that did that. And coming back to it, there are these parts where you see kind of these little cartoons similar to the cartoons that show you how the powers work in Bioshock. So they kind of, I mean, you could, if you're pretty negative, you could say that they ripped it off, but I would say, like, come on, it's like an inspiration. And the power mechanic in this case, because it of course it's a shooter, it's a first person shooter perspective, and you shoot. But the let's say what you do with the left hand, and going back into Bioshock language, is you manipulate time. So there may be like a room or an object that is in the current time, and then you kind of manipulate it and have it go back in time, so that you can maybe, if it's all exploded or all fucked up, you can kind of like take advantage of it again. So yeah, it's kind of like that. And I remember that the story was pretty engaging. And yeah, I just remember playing this game and having been a big fan of Bioshock, I recognized the influences, and I just remember like enjoying it very very much. And if I saw this game, like if it got a remaster, which is not likely at all because we know where Activision's interests lie, and also I'm sure that it did not sell as well to like merit that, I would be on top of it 100%. And who knows, maybe I can even get it on Xbox because they have the whole backwards compatibility thing. So yeah.
Yeah. If that came out on Xbox, probably you could try to replay it. And by the look of it, like it seems like it still holds. I think it kind of has that problem of that this bleached out aesthetic that was around 2010. Like every game looked the same.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting time in video games because you basically had the power of the next generation untapped, and people were really exploring with different mechanics. That's one of the things that Fear. I mean, I don't think that Fear is a hidden gem by any means. Just like it was a massive critical and commercial hit, but like the idea of, okay, let's try to tell a story, have a lot of action, have a lot of violence, have mechanics that are power driven, and something that was commercially proven with Bioshock as well. Really inspired a lot of cool games, and I'm sure that this one is probably in the list. I remember also like there was this game. I think it was called something like Rift. I don't remember. Like the thing you could do with the game is that you had a gun that would allow you to like create like use the floor. Like you could change the floor shapes to create like holes and cover and whatnot, and kind of
Okay.
like that whole trend of gaming. And also like there was this game that, damn it, that's the thing, like there were so many of them, and they were in a way like so generic, but there was one that was pretty hyped, and it had something to do, like you would throw like it wasn't like a poison, but it was something like yellow, like amber, and then you would be able to basically manipulate other NPCs into collaborating and attacking with you and killing themselves. Hive, I think it was the name of the game. Was it Hive? But
I don't think I've heard of this one.
but that's yeah, but that's the thing. Like it didn't, like those games don't really make this list because like they experience that you experiment with them, you play with them, they seem to be cool, but like they miss the mark in order to become like what we're discussing here, which is kind of like the hidden gem or underrated scenario.
Absolutely, man. So yeah, I don't remember like beat for beat the story and stuff like that. Like it didn't impact me in that way, but I do remember that it was a very competent shooter and very competent Bioshock inspired thing. And the fact that it was a Soviet Bioshock also kind of like um how would you say this, like in the beginning of Bioshock, you have the whole thing about Soviet Union and the man in Moscow, the ones blah blah blah. So to have a Bioshock style game in this Russian setting, it was kind of like having it come full circle. That's what I was looking for. And so yeah, which is your next game, your next hidden gem?
My next one, it's more on the underrated side. It's a newer one. It's Days Gone, as a
Okay.
really underrated game. I mean, it's making a comeback, I think. And it came back recently because it was on PlayStation Plus and people were picking it up on the next generation. And my God, what a game! I really believe that this game was underrated. Like
Yep.
effectively underrated. They had, and I think we discussed this in other episodes. Like I think we talked about Days Gone and our experience and like the glow up it had on the next generation. but I think that it's a game that when you see the reviews, it got like an avalanche of 6 and 7s and some 5s, and people are saying that it was unplayable. And in the end, like I picked it up last year, and or was it this year? I don't even remember. I don't even understand time anymore.
I think you told me that you got it for PS4, but then went back to it in PS5,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I actually bought this on release. Like there
Okay.
was a time where I was one of those guys that were like, I'm gonna buy this day one. I'm gonna pre-order. Like I want to play the game as soon as it comes out. It comes out, and this was one of those games where I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like I have to stop doing this. Like it doesn't make any sense because when it came out, the performance on PS4 was terrible. Like the game wasn't playable. At least for me, and I totally dropped it. And it was not until much later that I remember it was a tweet from Colin Moriarty that he was saying that someone was saying like this this Colin Moriarty guy is an idiot. He thinks that Days Gone is good, and then he was like, "No, I think that Days Gone is great." And it was like, I'm gonna give this thing a chance. And what a game! Like it's a game like they don't do them like that because it's weird that a AAA game has such a slow burn. For people watching that want to understand a little how really good and successful commercial games work, basically they need to hook you up at the beginning. Like you need to enjoy yourself for at least 3 or 4 hours, and then if you drop it, you get this feeling that it's your fault because you had fun. It's kind of like a relationship. Like if you had fun for 6 months with someone in a relationship and then things go bad, you're like, well, this is most likely my fault. You know, I was having fun before, now I'm not having fun. And that's not necessarily the case. I think that with Days Gone at the beginning, you're massively underpowered. You spend a big chunk of time just collecting gasoline and refilling your bike, and you see a zombie and it just kills you, and then it just picks up from there. Like you end up killing hundreds of zombies at the same time. The stakes are high as fuck, and and it just keeps growing and growing. Like it takes the formula of the Walking Dead and the classic zombie films, and it takes it to another level. There are some like rough corners, I would say. For example, the transition between kind of like the cinematics and and the gameplay. It's not The Last of Us. Also, it came like a year before The Last of Us or something like The Last of Us 2, like 2 years or something like that. Like, but we were already seeing a lot of demos of what The Last of Us 2 was going to be. So in comparison, although they're completely different games, like it looked like, why is Sony making two zombie games in the same generation? Like what the fuck?
Yeah, which is kind of a valid question, I think. I mean, even though I did like Days Gone in the end, I think I even platinumed it, but I do think that that's a valid question because when the games both hadn't come out, we were like, so how is this going to be different enough? Does this have its own legs to stand on its own when Last of Us comes? And of course, we do like in the end, Last of Us came out in 2020, and I believe this one came out at the end of 2018 or something like. No,
Yeah.
not at the end, or well, whatever. It's 2018. So I do think that people needed to have them separate enough in terms of release.
It's 2018. So
Exactly.
it was a year before. It was actually kind of like a year before The Last of Us 2. But the hype from The Last of Us 2 was like already there. Like it was a
Yeah.
sequel. We already knew what the game was about. We had seen a bunch of action pieces. We had seen the action piece in the woods where Ellie is escaping
Scars.
from the scars, and yeah, people were like super hyped about that one, and then suddenly it was like, oh, we also have this other zombie game that's not that convincing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this game we can actually sit down and speak a little bit more because we've both played it. I liked it as well. I do believe that it had its rough edges as well. Like for example, the pacing. I do believe that the game was rather longer than I would have liked. Not in terms of like side stuff and stuff like that, because that's totally optional. But like I remember that there's a part I'm not sure if we're gonna spoil it, so beware if you're interested. I'm playing it. There is a part where you kind of like the game. I believe has like 3 acts, if I'm not mistaken. The second act kind of feels sort of like it's gonna be the end, and then you go in this third act, which is a whole like
It's a
20
whole
or
new area. It's kind of like a
yeah,
whole new game. It's
yeah,
insane. That's also like what the fuck. It's like a second season. Like
yes,
that's
yes,
the other cool thing I think that this game does really well, which is and now and now a new story
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
now a whole new thing, and you're like, what? Like really? Out of the blue, and it's like 30% more of the map. It's a small map, but like it expands in a direction that you probably didn't see coming
Not at
because
all.
it's not.
Yes,
So it's insane, and you're right. Like it definitely feels like you're killing the final boss, and then suddenly now he's not the final boss. There's some other stuff going around, and
yeah.
it feels like a second season. You see, if you were to see this as a kind of like as a TV show, it does feel as a second season. Like
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. And I don't think like there weren't any parts that I didn't like because in the end I enjoyed it. I do believe that that's why I was so excited to see a sequel because this is a game that is a brand new IP, a brand new characters, brand new story. I mean, it's not a brand new genre because we've seen the zombie open world, but all these little things that I'm saying, if they would have kind of fixed it or knit or like yeah tweaked here and there, that game would have been 100% better. And that's why the second one was like, okay, this is where they're gonna nail it. And we know what happened with that.
and they killed it.
They literally killed it. Sony killed it, and it's funny because the game sold enough to be considered a success. It's not like it was a flop. It didn't bomb at all, 100%. Like
But it did take 7 years to make.
that is true.
That's something which is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. Yeah.
But like I don't and these studios that's the other thing about the first party studios of Sony. It's like they're not necessarily there to make a buck. Like they're part of the PlayStation experience, and I think that this studio probably got way more leeway than they were proving. And the fact that the game then came out and they actually did kind of like a survival mode and like NG Plus and whatnot, it just and I think that the test of fire for a game, I think, is like if they go into the PS collection and it and it kindles that energy again, it means that it was a great game. And I think this is the most important part for me. I think that it's not a last gen game. This is a next gen game because
Yeah.
the loading times on the PS4 were horrible. The performance on the PS4 was horrible, and this game at 30 FPS is doesn't like. I know that for most games that's true. That's the case, but in this game, like at 60 FPS on the PS5, fast loading times, it was straight. Like even those rough edges were improved because in the PS4 it would take like 20 seconds to go into a cutscene. Um, and that's not what happens with the other first party games. Like God of War is basically one long take. The Last of Us goes to insane lengths for integrating gameplay and story. So
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's another thing that I find really curious about this game, and you kind of touched upon it a bit before, and it's the reviews, the review scores that it got. And our good friend Colin Moriarty, which you already mentioned, he's been an advocate of this game because everybody has shit on it, and I mean I think it's fine. I mean everybody has their own opinion, right? But he was very adamant in saying that for some reason this game apparently, I mean I may get some of this wrong, but in general this is what I understand, which is that this game was given to reviewers very 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 soon, like sooner than is normal for them to get soon games, right? And apparently there was like some kind of miscommunication between Sony Bend and Sony PR or Sony, Sony PR, where the game wasn't really ready for it to have been sent to these people so soon, and that's why everybody encountered so much glitches and bugs and stuff like that. So like maybe if it would have been given to reviewers in the normal time that it is, which I don't know if it's 2 weeks before or 1 week before, that wouldn't have happened. So that is one example where apparently, allegedly, Sony PR kind of was at fault for the bad reviews. So yeah,
But that's a story. That's a story because both the head of the studio and the writer were in David Jaffe's podcast or YouTube channel, and they explicitly said that a lot of the things that the reviewers were complaining about were fixed on a day one patch, and they were actively working on fixing it. But they were never given the benefit of the doubt, and that's why they were really kind of like bitter about it. And also like there's always the narrative about that this game panders to like the classic demographic, like it's a white chopper guy, like he's just mad, he lost his wife. And also they had this clip where he's in the wedding, he's at his wedding. This is not a spoiler because like he's married from the beginning of the game.
I think I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, and then his wife says like I accept, like she says I do, and then it's like, but only if you promise to ride me like you ride your bike. And then everyone's like, what kind of riding is this shit? And it's like that's so unfair because that's the joke. Then
Yeah.
later at the end of the game you learn that she was basically complaining to him like, we can't be together, you rather ride your bike than ride me, like what, like that kind of, like it was part of the relationship dynamic. And I think the writing is great. Like I think that it's a good game. Like it just got shit on it. Like it got dogpiled because it's a first party game and they were expecting. But I think that a lot of people ultimately were expecting something kind of like The Last of Us but open world, and this is not The Last of Us. This is a zombie game.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, there is still hope. I hope that there's hope of it maybe getting a second like life and the second one being revived. I hope that happens because I think that Deacon St. John deserves
more. What a cool name. What you need to be. You need to be like, like a hell of a writer to say, you know what, I'm gonna call my character Deacon St. John, and that's his real name actually.
Yeah, it's not like a alias or anything. That's his actual name.
And people tell him, man, this name's so cool, and he's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. No, yeah. It was a cool game. I did enjoy it. So my next one is gonna be. So this is a game that's kind of a deep cut. I mean, if you say you know it, I'm gonna be really surprised. But The Suffering, does that name ring a bell?
I think this was kind of like a single player shooter game, like kind of.
This one was a third person shooter horror game, actually.
No, I didn't. I think I saw the review when it came out, but I didn't play it. Did I miss something good? Tell me.
Frankly, I mean, this is one that I would have to play again to really answer that question really correctly. But I do remember that this game made an impact on me because I've always been a fan of I was gonna say suffering games. I've
always suffered.
Yes. Well, kind of similar.
Why are we even here? Just to suffer?
Yes, very, very dire outlook on life. But no, yeah, like survival games. That's what I was trying to say. I really always loved them. And in this case, I'm going to try not to spoil it, but you're an inmate at a prison, which is... I don't believe that they give out the actual name of it's not an actual prison that exists, but it's kind of Alcatraz, like an allegory to Alcatraz. So you're in this prison, and then suddenly all these monsters start to appear and killing the inmates, killing the guards, and you're in there. And I believe that you're sentenced to die because you killed your wife. And
you're in death row.
Exactly, you're in death row. So and I believe that you as a player, there may have been like the thing where you don't know if you did it or you didn't, right? Like that's kind of one of the mysteries that's happening. And you're kind of searching for the truth, searching for this other character. And as I said, I don't really remember the details, but what did like scar me for life was that the monsters, the lore behind the monsters was really, really interesting. I remember very distinctly that there's this monster that launches syringes at you, That's how it damages you.
I'm seeing one of the screenshots, and I'm pretty sure it's this guy.
It's probably that guy. So there has to have been a codex, because I read this somewhere in the game, where it's kind of like a manifestation of a heroin addict, if I'm not mistaken. So the fact that they based the monsters and the monsters' designs and how they attacked and everything with actual like mental, I want to say, I don't want to say the word issues because that's kind of too general, but I think you know what I mean. Like it revolves around things that are psychologically dark.
Psychological disorders that are pretty violent. Okay.
Exactly. So I found that was really, really cool, because one of the things in horror that I think is very important and very hard to achieve is that the monster has to be ugly, right? But that's not the only thing. For it to kind of touch your soul and make you cringe or make you be scared or whatever, it has to tickle a subconscious fear within you or a subconscious uncomfortable thing. That is why Rosemary's Baby is a masterpiece. That is why Aliens Alien and Aliens and everything are masterpieces, because we see images that are horrible, and we see stories that are well constructed, but like beyond that, it's the actual meaning of what is happening, or the subconscious interpretation that you get from it that is actually scary or jarring or whatever. And in this case, this game did that for me. So that's why I wanted to include it there.
Yeah, I think that when something tells, like, anything can be ugly, but when something tells a story, it gives you it translates what you're seeing into like kind of like a multi-sensorial experience. Like, you understand better like why this is horrible. I think that horror games should definitely make a comeback, because I think that the most popular horror games right now, they are kind of like built in around survival, or action, but I think there's like this well, not necessarily like action, because like you have games like Resident Evil that, like, I think that the new Resident Evils they have, they're not that disturbing, like they're horror games, and but they don't appeal to, like, for example, I think that Dark Souls 3 is far more horror than any Resident Evil.
Every Souls game is a horror game in my book.
They are, and it's incredibly grim. And I think that that's something that it's not being tapped as much in the market. Like, they're going for jump scares or like the psychological dramas, but things like, for example, I think that there was also this game that this reminds me, that was from Rockstar. It was called, I think it was Manhunter.
Manhunt,
and
yeah.
then that was before Rockstar became like this open world publisher, like studio that make this really good games. They were like, they had very different type of games. They also had like a ping pong game. They did Eleanor, and they also had like Manhunter, which was one of those. The idea behind Rockstar Games at that point is like they could do anything, and they had no problem doing like really violent shit. And, Manhunt was all about that.
Super violent. That is a game, along with Bully, that would not get made today because of how the reactions would be from the public. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that Manhunt could get made because it's kind of like a very mature game. But I think that Bully wouldn't be something that people would like. Like, I don't think that studio exists anymore. I think that they could, like, I don't think there's a studio. Let me rephrase. I don't think there's a studio the size of Rockstar Games, even like the size that they had back then, because right now they're massive. Even the size that they had back then, there's not a studio that would consciously release that game today.
Yeah. I have a quick story about Bully. I may be wrong about this, but I played that game and this is my experience, right? So there is one class that you take in Bully that is geography. And the basis of the class is that you have like this continent that they give you, and then you have to like pinpoint what is what. I believe that geography 1 is like easy, and then as it goes on, it gets more, it gets
Yeah.
harder, right? So yeah, so geography 1, I believe, was obviously the United States, because the game is based in the United States. So it's like Virginia, Massachusetts, all the states. Then the second one is another continent, and then the third one is another continent. And I was like, wow, this is cool, because I mean, I like geography, like in generally, and I'm somewhat good at it. But I was like, where is South America? Like, what's happening? And then I realized, did these bastards put South America as uh, the hardest lesson, meaning that nobody knows where anything is in South America?
Everything
And I
is
was like,
Mexico.
exactly.
Everything is Mexico.
And I was, I mean, I'm not gonna say I was offended, because that's ridiculous, but I was like, come on, man, like what the
Everyone
hell?
knows where Venezuela and Barbados are. The game for me, it's kind of like it's funny because we were talking about it the other day about Judgment and Yakuza. That I think it's like for me like the most Japanese American game ever made, because it's just a kid walking around school, they're doing missions, they're repeating like the same places. There's a bunch of mini games that they're just there for you to have fun. There are no vehicles, like there's only like two vehicles, something like that. There's like a scooter that if they see you, you get in trouble, and then you get out
And
of
a
school
bike,
and you can go
right?
to a bar, and the bike was cool. Um and, and again, like that type of experimentation no longer exists in Rockstar.
Western, yeah, exactly, yeah, I
And
totally
in
agree.
Western games don't even have it, but like Rockstar had it at some point, and I think
Oh yeah.
that they have traded that for making this huge landmark, too big to fail masterpieces like Red Dead Redemption. And I'm sure they're gonna like still milk a few remasters on the next generation, but I mean the Switch, but which is like being rumored right now. But it would be cool that in between making Red Dead Redemption 2, GTA 6, and then Red Dead Redemption 3, they would actually like experiment and go back to being that studio that was really contrarian and edgy and cool.
I would love that, but I don't know why I'm getting the feeling like, do you know Dan Houser, who's like the writer that was there for
Yeah.
almost the beginning, right? Like I mean,
He
he's
even
been there.
wrote GTA 5, and he also produced.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, well, I don't know how much he produced the Red Dead Redemption 2, but his brother also like was one of the main writers. I think they
Exactly.
deserve all the credit, but I think that something that has happened is that like being an adult doesn't mean anything when it comes to gaming anymore. Like there are no adult games. Like everything has to be like this, you know, tame, controlled conflict that doesn't offend anyone.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. What I was going to say about that is that the fact that he left Rockstar after having been there for so long, I think is kind of an indication that maybe Rockstar is like, hey, this GTA Online thing, I mean, we created it in 2013 and it's still giving us so much fucking money. And then we have this RDR Online as well. So why do single player anymore? I do believe that they may kind of steer off. Well, they already have. Like the last GTA was a 2013 game. So
And they're making the remaster for the next gen, and
yes.
that remaster is not for the single player campaign. I mean, the single player campaign will be remastered, but we all know that the systems are being updated to the next gen, because that means that there's going to be multiplayer in the next gen. So that's what they're probably betting on, and that's probably going to be out later this year, and it should be kind of like a smooth transition because they already have all the infrastructure. So I don't think there are going to be many day one problems. So if you already have that game, make sure to just like run it around. I did install it again, GTA 5, just to see if it played a little better on the PS5. Loading times are better, but it's the same games, 30 FPS. So I'm definitely looking forward to a next gen patch.
Oh yeah, I think they're gonna do it later this year or something like that. I
Yeah,
believe. Yeah.
it's still no specific date, but they are part of 2K Games, which is a public traded company. So they do need to like basically say what they're working on and
Oh,
stuff like
sure.
that. So
So
there's stuff
give
coming.
me give me your next hidden gem. I think it's your turn, right? Yeah.
No, we
Nice.
were. Yeah, it's mine. Yeah. Yeah. So next one is a game that is it's from Xbox 360. It was from Xbox Arcade. It's called Iron Brigade by Double Fine Studios,
Oh, yes.
formerly called Trench. The game. This was kind of like a tower defense game, but even better. Basically, you have this huge mech, and you had to survive waves of aliens attack, and you could improve your mech. And the cool thing, it was kind of like an asymmetrical tower defense. You were inside your mech as a third person, and your mech was a force to be reckoned with, but you would use the resource that you would pick up from defeating aliens to create turrets um, around the map. And also it had a multiplayer element, and it had a great story, great art direction, and it was from the good folks Double Fine, which for me it's a studio that they have never ceased innovating. Like they also picked up part of this idea, or this like kind of like mix of elements of gameplay, and they used it as well later with the Jack Black game. I forgot.
Brutal Legend.
Brutal Legend. They kind of like picked that up in Brutal Legend, because here's kind of like the idea is that you have third person action shooter that it's also tower defense. And with Brutal Legend, you basically had a third person action game that was also a real time strategy game. So I think that with this game, Iron Brigade, it was just fun. It was a great bang for your buck. And when it came out, it was also like not available on like on like the fact that this was an arcade game that you have to download back then, it wasn't a death sentence, but it means that you would be on a smaller market.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, back then, like there was a very clear distinction between like arcade downloadable games, and they were called like downloadable game, and it was like its own category, its own thing. And I think other games like Explosion Man and Limbo came out of there. So yeah, I totally get what you mean, and I have never played this game, but I was gonna ask you about Brutal Legend because what you were describing kind of sounded similar to what happened then with Brutal
Yeah, it
Legend,
was
where
it
they
was
had these
this
sections.
was kind of a mix of different genres, and it took elements from also the way that you could customize your mech was super cool, both aesthetically and gameplay wise. You could change. You had like on each stick, on each stick you had a you have access to shooting one of the turrets, and one turret could be a radar or a sniper, and the other turret could be kind of like a rocket launcher or directly shooting things kind of like from the sky. And the animation from when you requested a turret to be placed on the map, it would just drop from the sky as if it's being deployed from a airship carrier or something. And the aliens were cool. There were different enemies, and it had a lot of variety in the maps. And of course, it was Double Fine, so the art direction was top notch. And it was, I think that Double Fine at that point, they had like this idea of like doing different games like Custom Quest and Stacked, and very different gameplay types of gameplay. There were small games, there were cheap games, because I mean cheap in the sense that like they were not. I think that the whole deal that we have right now, which what is expected from a game, comes from the fact that if you wanted a game in a box, then it had to be worth $60, whatever that means. And with these games, it was different. I think this one was like 25 or 20. And there were some really cool games that were just $10 back then. And this was what could be done. Like if you don't need to have a $60 game, and you have a smaller studio, and you have like a really cool idea, then you could make games like this. And I think that I maxed out. I don't even know like what's the equivalent in Xbox for like platinum a game, because it
Oh
just
yeah, getting all the achievements. They
get all the
they don't.
G's.
Yeah, exactly.
I cheated out. I cheated out the game.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I think it's a very cool thing that you mentioned there because in back in this time, these games were considered lesser than. Like we were all accustomed to AAA games or AA games or whatever, but they were all the same price. And at that moment, it was kind of more common to have this thing where if the game takes more hours to complete, it's more valuable. I think that's more where that comes from. And fast forward to now, like 20 years later or something like that, and we have Hades, which is an indie game worth $25, I believe. And that thing won more Game of the Years than maybe more than Last of Us
Yeah, it
or
was The Last of
similar.
Us. It was the same year.
Exactly. So I mean, I think it's good that we've now come to a place where it doesn't matter how much it costs. What matters is what is the product. Like what
Also, the
is.
quality that doesn't need to be
Mhm.
attached to a genre. You know, like I remember like when Shadow Complex came out in Xbox, that it was kind of like a side scroller. I don't know if you ever played it, but it was kind of like a side scroller from Epic Games, and everyone was like, "Look." Epic Games was like, "Look, you can use Unreal to actually do a side scroller, and a side scroller doesn't have to have pixel art and whatnot. And a AAA studio can do a side scroller." And it was kind of like this idea of trying to keep breathing some air to the like, I don't want to say like the business, because like but yeah, like kind of like the business more than the media. But I think that in the case of the business model, it shifts, like at that point where it's like, okay, now you can. I think that it has shifted now in the wrong direction. The fact that a game can be free, but then they have to sell you bunch of useless shit that then takes the art direction of the game, or like the core mechanics of the game on on the wrong path. But back then it was either $60 or indie.
Or yeah, exactly. That's totally true. So the next game for my list is going to be the other Raven game that I mentioned, which is X-Men Origins Wolverine.
And that one was good.
That was an awesome fucking game. And this is like this is one of my top 5 most underrated games in not only because it was underrated, but I think I like the relationship that I bring in is that how underrated it was critically in this case and how much I liked it. Like this is one of the top ones in that, like with that criteria, right? And this was a game that for anybody who hasn't played it, it followed more or less the I mean, it didn't really follow it, but it came out with the movie, which the movie was considered very very bad, and looking back on it, I think it was. But this game kind of follows around those events, but changes a lot as well. So I almost consider it like two different things. And the gameplay is the only time outside of comics, which I haven't really gone into or read many, but like we have this fucking superhero that has claws in his fucking hands, and we've never seen a drop of blood in any movie. We've never seen a drop of blood in any like cartoon, which makes sense because it's for kids. But it kind of frustrates me the fact that we have to kind of like keep this guy on a chain, right? Like, no, he can't dismember anybody because then we have to make it R-rated. And the only time that they managed to do that was with the movie Logan, which I think is a fucking masterpiece. But coming back to the game, this was a game where I think it was voiced also by Hugh Jackman, which also brings a whole level of coolness to it. You had different costumes that you could wear, which at that time and still, like for Spider-Man games, is one really cool aspect. The costumes would show up even in the cutscenes, which is also pretty cool. And for that time, it was like more impressive than now. And the gameplay was more like a God of War thing, where you kind of had this action adventure kind of thing, like heavy attack and light attack. You could buy some more combos, and the violence of the game was so like cathartic. Like it gave me the same feeling that it gave me as a teenager playing God of War, actually.
Actually,
And
this game, I played this game and I totally forgot about it until now, because this game, there are several things. This game, first, it looks great. Like, it looks insane. You forgot to even mention that when you get shot and you get hurt, like, you see like the bones and you see like how he regenerates. It's a complete overkill. Like, the production values of this game are just insane. It does not follow the events of the story, because you had things like with the Sentinels and
mhm.
and the huge robots, and you had like a bunch of cameos. You had Nightcrawler, you had Mystique, you had Sabretooth. Like, you have all of them appearing, and it felt good. Like, I really remember that they had some point. It had like some enemies that they would repeat itself, because the whole thing is like you were searching for some type of super serum that would turn people into fucking monsters like you. And And anyway, and it played well. Like it played well, it looked well. It had really cool puzzles. This was like a really solid game.
100%. And you know what it got? Like, I mean, I haven't checked the Metacritic, but it's like a 7 out of 10. And it's like, fuck you, man. It's like, come on.
That's the thing. Like also like movie adaptations,
Yeah,
they in games they I think there are good movie adaptations like in games, and I think that this is definitely on that list. Before this one, there was another Wolverine game that wasn't it wasn't as good, and this one I remember like this one like being such an overkill, and like it had like good animations, good story, good like it had everything, you know. I don't know, like just to some extent I think that this is, if I have to say like from the list of everything that we have said, this is definitely like one of those culprits that it deserves a lot more.
100%. And I also have to say, just like you did with Iron Brigade, I GG'd the fuck out of this
GG
game.
did the game, yeah.
Okay, my friend, it's your turn again.
So, and I think that my last game is called Duelist. It was a car collectible game that it was a combination of basically tabletop game and car collection, and it was pixel art, and you have several factions, and it was just super cool. It started as a Kickstarter from it's from the same studio that now is making Godfall, that that awful looter that's been published by I forgot the name, the people from
Gearbox.
Gearbox Software, and it was a fresher, it was a breeze of fresh air. Like it came out with a Kickstarter, um, and it was like it was the pitch line was like tactical board games meet Hearthstone, and that's what it was. It was a well balanced, incredibly flexible game that it had like a good critic reception, but it never. I think that it never reached its peak on both popularity and audience that it deserved. Like it was a truly pixel art, beautiful game. Like had a lot of lore, but it never reached. I think that it failed several fronts. Like it never reached mobile, but like style wise and art direction was insane. It was great. The monetization was not a predatory monetization. It was a really good game. And at the same time, lastly, but I think the most important, it was fun. It was well balanced, and it was a really good game. I think that not many people played it, but there is such potential in card games. I think it's one of my favorite genres. Like I like Magic, I like Hearthstone. Well, I don't like Hearthstone, but I
I
played
like it.
Hearthstone I liked it. I played Hearthstone for 5 years until it turned into a, let's say, a solitary game. And I think that the biggest issues with those games, I think that is kind of like the entry barrier. Like how do you play with that? And I have this duelist at the same line. I had two games for this one, because they're in the same point. It's this one and Thronebreaker from the people of CD
Oh,
Projekt.
yes.
So
Yes.
I actually managed to squeeze in a CD Projekt game as a hidden gem. Like people are so focused on the meme about a hidden gem from The Witcher that they forget that they actually have a hidden gem, which is Thronebreaker.
Yes.
It's a card game mixed with RPG elements, and it has a great story, it has great voice acting, it's a deck building game, and it's within the world of The Witcher, and it's small, it's cheap, it's available everywhere. It's available on Android, on Switch, on PlayStation, on Xbox, and I think that both of these fall in the same category that I was just like wanting everyone to play it, wanting everyone to appreciate it, and it just seems to be like people don't seem to be like looking twice at them. Duelist, you can no longer play it; it's shut down, sadly, because again, that's one of the things about this type of monetization models. Like you either make the buck or you get out. Like they don't turn they're not gonna turn on the servers just for you to play with your girlfriend. You know, like, and the same thing for Thronebreaker. There is the story of Queen Meave. It's amazing, and if you haven't played it and you're watching this, go pick it up, because Thronebreaker is probably the best Witcher game after The Witcher 3.
I think that that is probably accurate. I do have to add a little asterisk to Thronebreaker, which is don't play it on Switch. I mean, I have it on Switch and it runs like shit. Like the frame rate, like so. No, don't do that.
And it's crazy because it played like Switch on the PS4 when it launched, and you'll be like, what the fuck? Like really? Like how like these are fucking cards. Like I
Yes,
get it, some of the cards are cool, but this is glitching. Like this
yes,
is the
yes.
same console that had like The Last of Us 2, and you're glitching with cards. They fixed the performance, but they it was kind of like the same engine that they had with Gwent that is no longer available on PlayStation or Xbox. It's no longer available on consoles. It's only available on mobile and PC. But yeah, like don't play it on Switch.
No, don't do that. I have to admit that I really wanted to play that game, but two things kind of lured me out of it. One was the Switch because I was like, okay, let's do this. I'm a big fan. As you know, I'm reading the Witcher books. Like I'm in that lore. Like I
You
love
invested.
yes, 100% in the Witcher. But then I ran into these glitches and I was like, oh, fuck this. But then also, I don't know what happened to me and deck games, like card games. This also happened to me with a game that was called Steam World Hands of Gilgamesh, which if
Yeah.
you like card games, that is a very good one.
Yeah,
I
it's from
really
the same people that made well actually SteamWorld.
Oh, okay. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So in theory, in paper, I like card games because I have history with like Pokemon cards. I also like Magic. But something happens to me when I am playing a video game with cards that I get like I don't know. Something happens in my brain where I can't do it. I get kind of I don't know if it's bored. I don't know. Something happens, and I don't really know why because I like the lore. I like Gwent. I mean I fucking platinumed The Witcher, which you need to play a lot of Gwent, and I loved doing it. So I don't know what happened in those years between 2015 and now, but I'm gonna try again at some point, but not on Switch.
Yeah, I played it on because for me, like anyone that knows me, were like these people went to Christian's house and they asked him, "What game do you want?" And I was like, "Well, I want Thronebreaker," and they're like, "Okay, you got it."
You got it.
And we
Yeah.
were gonna add some other stuff that you're not telling us that you're gonna like even more. And I was like,
Mm.
"Okay, cool. We'll see you later." And it's a fucking cool game. I think that probably
Yes.
I'm a little bit biased about it, but the fact that um, the fact that it didn't. I think they're running into a lot of trouble right now in order to see how they're going to recover from Cyberpunk. I'm confident that they will because they have a lot of money. They literally have a video game store that makes millions, and in the end, they could hire people that works for them and just like they could steal a lot of talent to some
Yeah.
extent because it's in Poland, and well, moving to Poland might not be the most attractive thing in the world. But hey, you have healthcare in Poland, so if you're a video game developer and you're watching this, think about
Yes. Yes,
helping
you
them
do.
do Thronebreaker 2. But yeah, that was. I think that those two were like my last underrated games. But I think that there are a lot of as you're saying, I think there are a lot of underrated car games that people like don't really pay attention, and they can be insanely fun in the same way that Slay the Empire it's massively fun. For example, for some
Yes.
people, I don't like it that much, but a lot of people like just massively love Slay the Empire.
Yeah. I love. That's one that's been pretty popular lately. And by the way, Thronebreaker, if I'm not mistaken, at the time of recording this video, is on Game Pass, so you could play it there.
Cool.
Yes. Yes, you can. Okay. So I do have a couple more games here. Uh, Let me see what's the one I'm gonna go with now. I think I'm gonna go with a couple that are not as significant, and then I'm gonna go with another bombshell in the same style of as X-Men Origins, like in terms of importance. That's the one I'm gonna leave for last. So there is a game that I played only once, but I did finish it, which is called Enslaved Odyssey to the West. Have you heard about it?
Yeah, they're from starred by Andy Serkis. It's from the same
The
people that they did Hellblade,
Theory.
Ninja Theory, and then they also did the remake from DMC because
Exactly.
people tend to forget that DMC no was shit, like no one cared about it, and then suddenly they made their game, and everyone was like, "No, we want the old DMC. We never wanted this to begin with."
Yeah, and it's funny because I am a big DMC fan, like as in like the whole series. I played the first one on PS2. The second one, I don't know why I didn't. I never played it, but I've heard that it's horrible. So I don't think I missed anything. The third one, before having played the fifth one, was the best. Like the story, the difficulty, so good. And then they hit us with this DMC, which looks like an emo Dante weird thing. And I as a young gamer, I had the same reaction that I did with Wind Waker. You know, like, what the fuck are you doing? And I am like happy to admit that they shut my mouth and they delivered one of the most amazing games. Like, I would say that DMC is better than one, better than two. Sure. And maybe not better than 3 because 3 is a big masterpiece, and not better than 5 because 5 is really good. But like, it's one of the top DMC games, 100%.
Yeah, it was really worth. Like, it was worth it. I think that people were just mad because the guy's hair wasn't white, and it was like, can you play the fucking game? Like, it's so totally obvious that that's gonna happen. Like,
yeah,
exactly. You know, like what? It's a reboot. You know, like, he'll get there. And yeah, like, I think that it's a great studio. I don't know what they're working on. Well, they're working on the next Hellblade, right?
Yes, they're working on Senua's. What was it called? Senua's Saga 2? No, it's called.
Let me see. Hellblade 2. It's called Senua Saga. Hellblade 2. Yeah.
Oh, so I thought there was another word. Yeah, Senua Saga. Hellblade 2.
They're working on that.
They're working on that one, which is going to be apparently in Iceland, which is awesome. They just released a Series X patch for the first game, which everybody please play that first game. Hellblade 1 is so good. It's so fucking good. And play it with headphones. It's very, very important for you.
It's good. The headphones are important. They say it when you first start it. But now everyone loved that game. So
yeah, absolutely. So back to the original game that we were talking about, Enslaved Odyssey to the West. This was a very weird game, post-apocalyptic but very colorful, very awesome story. Like, it had a cool story. It had a lot of parkour, like climbing and stuff like that, reminiscent to Prince of Persia. The combat was also really cool. And I have to admit, I don't really remember that much of the story, but I do remember that I saw a lot of documentaries of like behind the scenes stuff with Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis is one of my favorite actors, like top maybe 10.
Gollum.
Because exactly. And because every time that I see an interview with him and every time I see him perform, you can see that the guy is taking it 100% seriously. Even if the movies he's working in is shit, what he is doing, even when he's doing like King Kong, which, I mean, I liked that movie at the time. I don't think it's much to speak about, but he was King Kong and he was also like the captain of the ship. But he takes it so seriously. He takes it so seriously that I just respect him a lot.
Yeah.
And in this
legit.
Yeah, and in this case, and also he just a little side note, he was an assistant director for Lord of the Rings, which is a big fucking role to have. So yes. So back to the game. How I saw him tackle this game and the character and the story, he put his heart into that game. And it was a really unfortunate that the game didn't do that well because they never revisited the franchise at all, and they never did a sequel. And I think that the game was kind of going towards a sequel, like narratively.
Yeah, but, it was definitely going in that direction. But I think at least Microsoft saw the potential that Ninja Theory had, and I think weren't they acquired? Like, I think someone acquired Ninja Theory.
Yeah. They're a Microsoft studio now.
They're a Microsoft studio, so yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, actually, that's also like a controversial thing, which I don't agree should be controversial. It's that the Hellblade patch that I just mentioned that came up for Series X did not come to PS5, and I think that's just how it goes. Like, they're literally a Microsoft studio now. Like, why should they give us a PS5 patch? Doesn't make sense.
PlayStation has there's a Spider-Man game that's only available on PlayStation. There's no reason for that to be that way at all. Exactly. And that's how it is. And you know, like, and no one's complaining about that. No one's an X. Well, probably they are, but there's only so many people with an Xbox that they could make enough noise.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's always going to be people complaining. But yeah, I mean, I don't understand. And this is actually something that perhaps we should pick about. So, why is it controversial now for there to be exclusives? Exclusives have been there from the beginning of the medium.
Because they didn't. No one wanted to play those games. That it just goes as that. Like if you wanted to play Halo, you already had an Xbox. Like the drivers in order to get Xbox were already there. But now there's a lot more competition, and now there's Game Pass, and there are gonna be new franchises that people are gonna want to play, and they're gonna feel it. I think there's gonna. I don't know if we're gonna get to the point where people are gonna be like, I'd rather have an Xbox, but I think that's kind of like the issue, because most people are not, because no one's saying like, why do I need to buy a Switch if I want to play Zelda, like, but they do say that because like there seem to be not enough reasons to get an Xbox, so people feel like they won't be able to play the game. Like I won't be able to play it because my hope is that there will be enough games that people will be like, okay, at least I'm gonna get like an Xbox Series X is the small one. No,
No,
X is
Series
the big one.
S.
Series S. I'm gonna get an Xbox Series S and at least get to enjoy it.
Well, I mean, I think we've already covered this in the podcast before. I don't really agree. I mean, I am so freaking happy with the Xbox. Like, I have been playing it exclusively like for months, doing the whole Yakuza, the whole Mortal Shell, which
No,
you
it's
can buy.
it's a great deal. It's a great deal.
Yeah.
Like at this point, it should be something to consider. It shouldn't be an outrage and that's the thing. Like the patch is out there. I think also the fact with Hellblade is like people think that they're missing out because they already own the game. It's like they're patching it for someone else, but not for me, and they're patching it for free for them and not for me. But that's how the game goes. Get an Xbox and play it for
Yeah,
free. Like you just get on Game Pass and that's it. Start playing your PlayStation.
exactly. I mean,
That's how it works.
it's that's just how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna fly through these two and then go to the last one. Deus Ex: Mankind Divided is a game that for some reason got no love at all. Everybody fell in love with Human Revolution, which is a masterpiece, and it's better than Mankind Divided. But this game deserves its praise because it's a very amazing cyberpunk game. When people were shitting on cyberpunk, and some people shifted to Mankind Divided, which I thought was funny. Have you played that one?
I played it and I agree. Like I don't know why it was more popular. Like even
Crazy.
to this day, it's like why is there not like even a next gen patch? They could remaster this thing, and people should be excited about it. I think that the Human Revolution one, I couldn't stand the boss fights. I fucking hated them. I didn't finish the game because of the boss fights, because there was one particular boss that if you were kind of like a stealth character or kind of hacker, you basically couldn't kill it without cheesing it, and it was like fuck this game, and it just broke me like that, like because all the bosses were kind of like, the story is that the bosses were outsourced to a different studio, which I don't even know how you do that. I honestly don't even know how you do that, and they were so bad. There were blockers for me in every single part of the game. I think it was the third one when I said I'm bored, like I don't want to deal with this anymore. I've obviously invested my time in the wrong game, and I never pick it up. But then I picked up Mankind Divided because I thought that they were not gonna do the same shit again. Like everything else was fine and everything was good. Like I think it's a game that, considering all the fuss that Cyberpunk had, this is kind of like basically what Cyberpunk. Now that we know what Cyberpunk is, it's just better than Cyberpunk. Like I don't need an open world for everything that fucking happens. I just want, give me a few good levels, give me some action, some options, and I'll be on my way.
100%. Then the almost to last is Prey. This is a game that was criminally underrated as well.
Yeah.
Also,
it had its remaster lately, right? Because I've heard like some people playing it again.
no, I mean, I think that it got like a new life because when Bethesda was acquired by Microsoft, it got like the thing that the Xbox does that's called FPS boost,
Yeah.
where they kind of do this little trick to double the frame rate. But I played that in the Xbox when that happened. And initially, like, I'm a big Arcane fan. I think Arcane is the best studio that was acquired in the Bethesda deal. I truly believe that. And when Prey came around, I remember that the reviews weren't so hot. And at that time, I was paying attention to them. And I was like, okay, maybe I should skip this one. But then this happened where it was available on Game Pass, and that coincided with a lot of YouTubers and a lot of people that I listened to saying that this was a really great game and I should play it. And I did. And this was really an awesome game. I don't really understand why people would shit on it at all. Like, it has the same sort of multi-tactical approach to objectives that Dishonored has. I mean, Dishonored is more expansive, I would say, and better. But this is also pretty masterful. The story's pretty good. You have choice.
I think that's the problem. Like, it came at the same time that we had Dishonored, Bioshock, and it wasn't feeling like a new niche. It was just another one of those ability FPS games.
Exactly. But I would recommend anybody to play this game because it is truly good. And then the last one that I really wanted to pontificate a little bit on. Are you okay with time?
I'm running out of battery in my iPhone, so.
Oh shit!
but I think I have like at least like 5 minutes more or something.
Okay, well,
no, like 10 minutes. I think I have the time. Don't worry. Just
okay.
Go for it. And when I run out of battery, then you just put like I'll still have the microphone. You just put like color bars or something or that.
Well, I mean, I do have the footage of you on the webcam.
Exactly. So, you have the fallback, so I won't look as handsome, but I'll be there.
Of course, you will look as handsome. How could you say that?
Thank you.
How could you say that? Okay, so the last game, which is it is the game that for me initiated this conversation in the first place of underrated games. The hidden gem for me, and I don't know if you're
diamond.
Gonna exactly
the diamond in the rough
is Castlevania Lords of Shadow. This is a game that when it came out, I had anticipated it a lot because I saw trailers. I was following it a lot. It was one of those games that when I wasn't really connected to the news and the media and the industry and blah blah blah, this was a game that I don't know where I saw it, maybe on E3 or whatever. But I was like, this game, when it comes out, I have to play it. It was one of those. And when I did, I fell in love with it 100%. The art direction, the creatures, the story, the performances. We have Robert Carlyle from Trainspotting or movies like, what's another one he's done? Moon something? Well, I mean, he's a very famous Scottish actor. We have Patrick Stewart as Zobek. We have Oscar Isaac as Satan. Hail Satan! We have him there. The story, the art direction, whenever you would pause the game, this book would open. The concept art that would be there when you would buy combos and would show you how the combo works. Like, I'm truly being honest when I say that every aspect of this game was something that not only made an impression upon me, but I recently bought the game on Xbox because it's backwards compatible. I opened it up, and the music, the performances, and everything that I saw in only like 15 minutes that I played was like a total flashback. And like, there are moments in this game that are awesome. The combat is super fun. There are some boss fights that are akin to Shadow of the Colossus where you have to climb. It's awesome.
It's made here in Spain as well.
It is made here in Spain, yes, by the team of Mercury's team, who are the ones behind Metroid Dread, by the way, which is pretty interesting.
I played this game, and I actually know some people that worked on them back in my days as a game developer, and this was a massive game, and also it was long. And when I say it was long, it's not like it was just long. It was like, it was good long, like the game that kept on giving. Like, if there are some games where you're like, I don't know why I paid €60 for this. This one was like, this is worth every dollar. And you see, your dog agrees.
Yes, it does.
And I think that in particular that game just like, it had hours and hours of gameplay. Like, it would never stop. It was beautiful.
100%. This is another one that, of course, I GG'd the fuck out of, and this was a long one to GG because GG has now become the word. because you had to like beat the game, and then when you would beat the level, a new difficulty would unlock. So you had to beat it like twice, and then there were collectibles. And one thing that is cool about this is that, you know, of course, Castlevania is the name Metroidvania comes from Castlevania, of course. This game has the Metroidvania spirit in a 3D world, wherein you have these areas that you know you can't access until you have whatever upgrade that you're gonna get later. So you actually have an incentive to come back and beat it again, because you can do this and grab these upgrades and all that. So, I mean, total enjoyable experience. And
It is weird because like it's a game that on its DNA it understood what made Castlevania. Like it's not like it was a completely different thing, because I think also Kojima was involved.
Producer, yes.
He was one of apparently, like, according to my friends, he would just like show up to the studio every couple of months, or he had like some calls with the people, but he wasn't that influential. But it's still like he was working on that, and it was a high value product, and it understood perfectly what it was. Not like they were like, okay, we're just gonna take the brand and slap it on an action game. It actually was like what would happen if you were to do a full AAA production with a Castlevania IP.
Absolutely. And then what did IGN give this game? A fucking 7. And I was like,
it's good enough.
oh my god. I think this was the moment where I said fuck reviews. Like literally in history. Like
this is around, I think it's around 2014. So I am pretty sure that at that point those reviews were killing the game. Like a 7 would kill a game.
yeah, probably.
That's the thing with reviews back then, because there was no Twitch. Like you could, yeah, there was YouTube and you could like kind of check it out, but there was not the public discourse of you saying like just pick up the game, this is great, or like a contrarian attitude around it. I don't even think that reviews had comments on IGN, so there were not people being able to say like, no, this is good. But yeah, seven was a killer, especially for the thing, like when you have like these high quality franchises compared to some other games. It's like it's not like they would pass under the radar with a 7. It would be like, ooh, it's a 7. Like they had Castlevania, and they can make an 8 or a 9, and it's not even real Castlevania. It's like a 3D thing. So there's also some marketing thing that I think that also could have been better. Like marketing wise, they could have exploited the game better. But again, like I think it was a pretty solid game, and it's a shame that the story was great. By the way, the character design was insane. Like
there was also this thing that I love it when the bad guys have like lieutenants, and in this case you went literally through like the lycanthrope area or part of the game. You went through the vampire part of the game, and then there was another part of the game which was more like necromancy and stuff like that. And I fell in love with it so much, and I have to say, I'm not going to spoil it here. I don't know if some of you out there haven't seen this, but this is one of the video game endings where I have gasped, audible gasp, because the twist at the end, oh, fuck.
You reacted.
It's
you
good.
Effectively reacted.
I did. It's a shame that the sequel was not as good, because it has some like not future, like current day parts which are bad. They're bad. But the castle parts, which are they're pretty cool. I mean, the first one is 100% better. There's no question about it. However, there is a very dramatic scene between Robert Carlyle and another character in the second one that I watch from time to time, because it's just engraved here in my mind, because it's like so good. The Robert Carlyle's acting in this game is, I love it so much. But yes, those are that is my last and most underrated gem that I love. And if this game would get remastered, I would buy it in every platform and platinum it and GG it and not play it on the Switch again, but still have it on the Switch in case I go to a deserted island, so stuff like that. But yeah, it's like 100%.
I think it's a fair list. Like looking at it, there are a few bangers there that I think even some of them still hold up. Like if you were to play it, The colors probably they're all bleached out and they look like a night like a 2010 movie, but they're still, trust me, like some of these games that we mentioned, they were surprises back then and they deserve a lot better. Hopefully some of the studios are still alive and they found a way, and like all those talented developers are still working, so good for them. Just shows that talent soldiers on.
Yeah, this was pretty interesting because I found that in your list that I think I didn't even know most of them. Like it was pretty cool. Yeah, it was
Yeah, I
very
mean,
interesting.
because I when I did the thought exercise, I was like, okay, games that no that no one really fucking played. And yeah,
That's awesome.
but your list is really solid as well, because some of those games really were meant for a lot more.
100%. So
Eh,
normally we have this section. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, no, I think that's it. I think I'm just also just gonna mention that there's also the fact that double A gaming, it's in a way kind of like kind of like having a rebirth right now, but at the same time it's not. So there is less variety on the market on those kind of like mid entry titles. Like right now, everything is like revolves around like early access or indie games or small, very small studios with really experimental ideas. But I think that the one thing that all these games have in common is that medium-sized studios with very ambitious or original ideas. That's kind of like what it seems to be, kind of like the main element.
Yes. Okay, so before we go into the final part, I would just like to shout out and very quickly. I'm not gonna pontificate about it. Yakuza. We've already talked enough about Yakuza. I'm not gonna speak more about it, but please play it. It's amazing. The writing, the characters are so good. This includes Judgment, of course. Then we have The Messenger. I don't know why this game didn't get better reviews, but this is an amazing side-scrolling pixel art
It's in Apple
indie.
Arcade as well. If you have an iPad, you can
Oh,
play it.
there you go. And then I just wanted to shout out as well Darksiders. I love that series. I think it's really, really cool. It also doesn't get as much love as I think it deserves. So please do. One thing I like about it is that because on every game you play as a different horseman, that opens the game up to be a different genre. Because so the first one is like a Zelda sort of game with a sword. The second one is an RPG. It's very different. Then the third one is, I mean,
It's a
similar to
twin
the
stick.
first one.
It's a twin stick. No, the third one is similar to the first one, but the last
Yeah,
one is a twin stick brawler, right?
Genesis. Yeah, exactly. It's like an isometric. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And that one was a little weaker than I expected. I had better hopes for that one, but we should still get the fourth one, where the fourth horseman, which is the guy with the guns. I don't remember.
War,
No, War's the first one.
but he has the
sec-
guns, right? No, I'm mixing it with the Overwatch character that kind of looks like him.
Oh yeah. I mean, he may have one gun, but that's not like his main thing.
Yeah. No,
So
but
it's
wait,
yeah,
it was War, Death. I don't remember.
Fury,
Like the
and
second
then
one, Fury.
Strife. Strife,
That's
I
right.
think it
Okay,
is.
okay, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
War was the first one. Yeah, I confused it with the second one.
Exactly. And so yeah, I love that series. And then so we shift to the final part of the episode, which may be a shorter one for this one, because I believe you're playing the same thing you've spoken about.
I bought a few new games, so I'm
Oh,
also.
let me know about
But
that.
I
Yes.
started playing them. I finally gave in and started playing Final Fantasy VII, the remake. Like,
Oh.
and I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this a chance, the full integrate version, and it feels better. Like it plays better. Um,
Did you
and
finish the PS4 version?
no. I didn't like the. I was playing the PS4 version, and I don't know. Like I was like, I don't think I was in the mood because I had just finished like some. I think it was Dark Souls. No, it was Demon Souls that I had finished, and I was like, I don't really feel like this combat is like doing it for me. So I'm playing like on the PS5 version, and the patch is considerable. Like it's really a next gen addition. Like the loading times are none. It looks incredible, and I think that the combat and everything is looking good. I also bought, because I saw it was on $10, Metro Redux. The
Exodus.
that also
Or
has the next gen patch, and I haven't played it that much. It's looking good in the sense that, but I need to like be on the mindset of I'm gonna play this game because still haven't finished like Judgment. I still haven't finished Mass Effect 2. And I just like bought these two games, started playing them just to get the feel of it. But I think that Redux, I have to be like, okay, this is a shooter. This is a classic shooter. This has like mechanics that I haven't been playing with in a while, which is kind of like, like the stealth doesn't seem to be that absolute mega solid, but it looks good. The story looks good, and it's kind of like, I would say, kind of falls in the double A category of games. Like it's a small studio,
but because
it's
Redux
solid.
is the first one, right? It's not
No, wait.
Exodus.
Wait, what is the last one? Because they both, that's a marketing problem, by the way.
Yes, the
what-
last one is called Exodus.
It's the last one. It's the last one. Yeah. It's
Okay.
the last one. I just searched for Metro in Google and it showed me like, obviously it showed me the Metro. It's Exodus. I always confuse it with Redux. I played Redux and it was good. I liked it a lot. I played Last Light. I played the first one, the 2033, and I'm looking forward to playing this one. It's just that it feels different. Like it's a game that it's more of a game. I don't know if this makes sense, but it feels more of like the voice acting. It feels like it's the voice acting you expect from a game. I don't know if that makes sense. Like it.
I think I understand. Yeah,
It's weird.
I do.
Like
I do have the understanding that the PS5 patch is significant. Like
it is significant. It is significant.
Okay.
If you see the Digital Foundry video, it is significant. But I didn't play the one on PS4, so I'm not sure like how. I didn't feel the other experience, but yeah, it runs smoothly. It has really good production value. Technically, it's really good, but at the same time, the fact that some areas of the game design and the production value are like a little bit on the old school side, then it's kind of weird in the sense that there is an improvement, but it still feels like it doesn't make it. It's not like it shines into a whole new dimension in production, but it does feel like, okay, this is a solid game. It looks great, and let's see where it takes me.
Awesome. Yeah, I really love that game. I'm a big fan of the Metro games, and yeah, that one is definitely, I think, the best. Like I do believe that the series like evolved.
Yeah, and the story
Okay.
and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's funny because when you mentioned voice acting, I just remember like so many times of Artyom, we have to go look the blah blah. It's very
Some friends were telling me like play it in Russian, and I'm like, I don't speak Russian. Like,
well, yeah.
like and it's not like that. That's the thing with game different with movies is that I think that that's not like kind of like the original, unless there is kind of like a real acting production behind it. Like I don't think it's gonna really alter the experience for me. It's like playing Warzone on Spanish or Italian if you have if you buy the physical version here in Spain, it's either Spanish or Italian. Like some Call of Duty didn't have the English version. If you're like, it's some shit like that. But the point is, I think that because the voice in games, it's an element that is artificial. It can be either just as good on English as it can be just as good on Japanese. For example, like if we were talking about the Ghost of Tsushima, the main voice acting is in
English.
It's in English. And I remember like with Sekiro, the default language is Japanese, but I switched it to English, and the work is great. Like they really did a really, really, really good voice acting in English and in Spanish. So I don't know. Like in those games, obviously there is an argument for having like that level of fidelity, but also like having the story, it's cool. I think. But there is the fact that, as you're saying, they speak in English with a Russian accent, which is why. Like
Yeah, it's funny, but I love it. I do have to disagree with you with the whole voices thing.
you play Yakuza in Japanese, like the language is Japanese?
100% Japanese, because I don't know, like I like Kiryu's voice is already his voice, and I just feel like sometimes the English voice acting, I mean, most of the games I play are probably English because that's the main language, right? But But like Ghost of Tsushima, that's a great example. I had to play that game in Japanese, even though the lip syncing issue annoyed me a lot, because I just can't deal with the fact that I am in this period piece in Japan, Tsushima Island, and then the guys are like, "Please go get me the chicken." He's like, "No, man, no, this just no."
I see.
And you also mentioned something that hits close to the heart here, which is you said that it doesn't matter if the Call of Duty voice is in Spanish. Dude, I played Modern Warfare, the free one.
No, but I'm talking about like Warzone. No. Obviously, you need to have Captain Price in with his Scottish accent.
No, but even in Warzone, I couldn't stand it. I went as far as to go into my old American account, buy the game there, and then download it into my Spanish account because I just can't do it. UAV enemigo. I know.
It's ridiculous.
No.
It's ridiculous. Like, nothing makes sense. But I played it in Italian. If it makes
shit.
So I was like, I'd rather have it in Italian than have it in Spanish. That's how far I go. I go with that one. But I think that in some cases it depends. I think that in the case of Judgment, for example, the dub in English is so ridiculous that it's like, who gives a shit? Like at that point, I'm like, but I know that I am missing out in the sense that the main voice in the original version, it's really good because it's like one of the most popular like pop stars in Japan, and he doesn't even do the karaoke parts.
And it's also he's the guy. Like he's
the guy. He's Yagami. So there's that. Like it's there is a solid argument in those cases. I think also in the Yakuza for doing that. But I think that it like, considering the fact that you invest a lot of hours on that, and like I really like figuring out things through like basically the dialogue. So I think that I don't have like a super strong opinion, but I think that I do it like on the basis of that one. Sekiro, the first time I played it was on Japanese, and it was cool. But then the second time I played it, I was like, let's see what the English dub looks like. Because I saw that Greg Kasabin from Supergiant Games, the head of studio of the studio that did Hades. Hades. He basically said kudos to the English dub because I'm seeing it and it's great. And I was like, what the hell? And it's good. And the Spanish one, I picked it up because I was watching like a no-hitter that was playing it in Spanish, and it was insane as well. Like I don't know where they get these people, but they were really, really, really good. I 100% feel like in the case of Sekiro that you don't miss out on the experience if you choose like the other languages because they are very well executed. I think in the case of Yakuza, it's a complete different thing because there are also like cultural differences that when you hear them in English, it's just like no one would ever say that shit, you know.
Exactly.
Like when you hear someone say, "What about Your Honor?" It's like, what decade? Like, where are you from? What year is this? Like, I don't give a shit. You know, like I think that the localization there, they could do it. They could say, okay, let's localize this to feel like it's more American. And then when he says something like, "What about Your Honor?" it says like, "You have no shame" or something like that. You know, like they could do a better job on that, but they don't. And for me, like it grew in me like the whole nuance of how silly the dialogues can be.
Yeah, I totally agree. So for me, I'm not gonna go too long on this. I finished Yakuza Kiwami 2, loved it. I think it's one of my favorite Yakuza games that I played so far. Then I went into Yakuza 3. I also finished that one, and I mean, what I decided is for 3, 4, and 5 that are PS3 games, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do them on easy and just going to speed right through them because I don't really care much about the gameplay. Like, I just care about the story. So I don't care. And then when I go back into 6, which 6 is like a very recent game. I think it's 2017 or something like that. That's when I'm going to go back into playing normally. And then after that comes Judgment. And we will be on the same page for Lost Judgment.
Exactly. And then we're gonna do an episode on Lost. We're gonna do like a spoiler cast on Lost Judgment and like figure out who the killer is together.
Yes, we will, man. Yes, we will.
Which, by the way, it's kind of like one of the mysteries in this games. But rest assured, like to the audience, like there is they will like it's not kind of like a clue game where you figure out who the killer is. Like you probably find out who the killer is like in the last 2 hours of the game. Like it's just they're not mystery games per se. Like you're investigating a crime and usually the biggest plots of information they're really hard to see and like but they're good.
Yes, they are. And then what I'm playing now, I started playing it last night because it became available on Game Pass, is Hades, my friend.
You haven't played it before?
I bought it on Switch, but I just said I hate this fucking console, and I was like, this is gonna come.
You were playing it. You were playing handheld.
Yeah, I think I was playing it handheld, and
yeah,
I was like,
then you're missing out. You're missing out. If you can't play that game handheld, like you have to. I'm gonna tell you, like at some points you're gonna be like, I can't do this. Like there's no way I can finish this game. But you have to believe in yourself.
You play too many Japanese games, my friend. This believe in yourself. No,
it is the power of friendship.
No,
the same thing. Yeah. If you haven't played Returnal, right?
Yeah, I finished it.
Yeah, of course. We talked about it. It's like it's. I would say it's kind of like the same feeling. Like, but I don't know if worse because the thing with Hades is that even though you're dying, you're constantly unlocking the story, so it's not as punishing. But at some points, you're like you just have to go through it because it feels as if you're trapped in there. Like
absolutely.
Like dying is part of the story.
Exactly, and I love it how every time you die, you find out something new back in your house. I think that's awesome. The art direction, 4K 60. Oh, my friend, it's so good. The combat is amazing. The progression, like I'm not a fan of roguelites, and I'm already in love with this game.
Me neither.
Yeah, exactly.
We talked about
the roguelike for people who don't like it.
Awesome. I didn't like roguelikes. I played Hades and was like, I'm into roguelikes. Then I played Returnal and was like, I'm not that really into roguelikes. And I think that it's like I go back to Hades. Like Hades is just way more than anything else. But yeah, 100%. So check it out. Like you're gonna have fun. I think I'm gonna buy it. It's like again, it's like one of those studios where like if they release this game on I don't know, on the Apple Watch, then I'll just buy it on the Apple Watch, even though I'm never gonna play it on the Apple Watch. It's just
But now that you mentioned that you're playing Final Fantasy, I also bought the Intergrade last week because it's on sale, and I think we may do a spoiler cast on that as well, my friend, because I played on 2019, knowing that game was gonna come out. I played the first one in Switch, but the original PS1.
Yeah, the PS1 one.
Exactly, because I wanted to be ready for this, and I am so hyped. I've been hyped to play it for like a year, but I just been holding it off.
Yeah, it's really cool. I was a little disappointed in the fact that it's only a third of the story. Because that's what I like about the original one, that it's so massive that it feels like you're in a world of itself. And here it's just kind of like we're gonna get 3 games, so there's that. But still, it feels solid. It looks good. Like obviously, if you were gonna recreate, it would be way too ambitious to do what they're doing with this one with the whole thing. So there's that.
Absolutely,
it's a different rhythm. But yeah.
Well, people, this is the end of our episode today. We hope you enjoyed it. If you have any more underrated games that you think we would have gladly included here, or something you want to share them in the comments. Share this episode with your friends. Subscribe, like, comment, do all of those great things. Check out this man's podcast in
hammerspacepodcast.com.
There we go. And we will see you next week on the next episode of the podcast.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.